As you are regularly observing what's happening in American culture, you've commented a lot on trends that you find distressing. What are some of those, and what are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, if we're looking at the election and all these events, you could look at it at the superficial level of like who was right on inflation, et cetera. But I think the thing that disturbs me is that and scares me, is that we're in the middle of some sort of relational, emotional, and I think a spiritual crisis. And so we've just become a lot sadder as a country. And so rising suicide rates up by 30%, rising depression rates, the number of Americans, 54% of Americans say no one knows them well. 45% of high school students say they are persistently hopeless and despondent. The number of Americans who say they have no close friends has risen by fourfold since 2000. The number of Americans who say they're lonely is 36%. The number of Americans without a romantic partner is up by a third. The number of Americans who rate themselves in the lowest happiness category is up by a half. And so we've just become a lot sadder. And when you become sadder, you become meaner. Because if you feel invisible, unseen, lonely, you regard that as a threat and as an indignity, which it is. And so you want to lash out. And so there's been a rise in gun violence, a rise of hate crimes. The statistic that bugs me, first, a generation ago, 2/3 of Americans gave to charity. Now fewer than 50% give to charity. The most important social indicator is trust. Do you trust your neighbors? And 2 generations ago, 60% of Americans said they trust their neighbors. And now it's not 60%, it's 30%. And it's 19% of millennials and Gen Z. The younger you go, the more distrustful people you are. If you ask Gen Z, do you think most people are selfish and out to get you? 73% of Gen Z say yes, that's true. So imagine going through life looking around and thinking, all these people are out to get me. And so to me, that's just not a political problem. It's not an economic problem. It's more of a spiritual and relational problem. And it's just a gigantic mystery why we become sad and mean.
What stories stick out to you as illustrating all of those statistical trends?
Yeah, there are a bunch of stories you could tell. There's the social media story. Technology is driving us all crazy. There's an economic story. We're more unequal. There's a civic story that we're less active in civic life than we used to be. The 2 stories I tell are the most direct, which is the first, which is we've lost the ability to teach each other how to be considerate to each other in the concrete circumstances of life. And these are basic social skills. How do you listen well? How do you ask questions well? How do you break up with someone without crushing their heart? How do you offer criticism in a caring way? How do you sit with somebody who's depressed? We've just failed to teach these skills. But then more fundamentally and more cosmically, I think we're living in a time of existential anxiety where people don't know where they're rooted.